Firefighters have a very diverse job by themselves. They not only put out fires, but they respond to emergency medical calls and do community education as well. In May 2018, firefighters from Gilbert, US, received an unusual call. The firefighters sprang straight into work and were surprised when they reached the scene to find that there was no fire nor medical emergency. The caller wanted to report some ducklings that fell in the sewer. He was worried about their safety and asked how he can help. The baby ducklings could be heard chirping from underneath the storm drain's cover with their mother pacing anxiously back and forth in a fit of worry. The drain cover came off quickly, but getting the ducklings out proved to be a bit of a challenge. The firefighters reached in and grabbed them one by one to save them from drowning. A number of them was carried into the drain and out the reach. The concerned mother Doug watched from the pavement the entire time. That's when the emergency responders had the idea of playing the sound of a duck cracking from a phone. The strategy worked well, and before long, they were pulling ducks out of the drain. The firefighters then tied some rope to a bucket and gently navigated it down into the drain where all the ducklings were. They managed to retrieve one little duckling. Seeing her first baby was out of the drain, the mother duck rushed next to the drain and took a good look inside. Unfortunately, all she could do was to sit tight and wait for the firefighter to carry on with his work. Each time the bucket went down and then back up, only one duck was in the bucket. The firefighters didn't want to leave anyone behind, so they decided to go all in. One firefighter went down into the drain with the bucket in tow and gently attempted to scoop the rest of them up until they finally succeeded. All 12 ducklings were safely out of the drain and reunited with their mother. This rescue may not have been the most dramatic in the fire station's history, but it may very well have been the most adorable. Danielle and May. Freedom Fire Sanctuary Israel is an educational center where they rescue and rehabilitate animals from the food industry. All of the animals at the center are survivors from the meat and dairy industry. All of their daily work is dedicated to animals from those industries. One tiny duckling in Freedom Farm Sanctuary caught Danielle's eye. The duckling was so cute, but couldn't walk properly. She figured that he would need to be very close to someone and have constant attention, so she decided to take him home. Once Danielle arrived at home with a new friend, she plopped him in her playpen, and sure enough, he started to eat. She then placed him into a little bowl so he could enjoy his first dip in water, which he seemed to adore. She also took a little duckling over to her parents' house so he could go into the swimming pool. The first time she placed him in the pool, he was terrified and swam really fast behind her. He soon gained his confidence up and began jumping into the pool by himself. Danielle's goal was to try and recover the little duckling and in turn, reunite him with his mother and siblings as quickly as possible. She took him back to the Freedom Sanctuary and did just that. However, something she didn't expect happened. The duckling didn't recognize his mother and siblings and ran towards Danielle. Danielle tried easing me into them by returning weakly, but he would always return to Danielle. Nothing worked. Young ducklings imprint on whatever and whoever they spent time with within those first few precious hours of life. It's often their mother or siblings. But if you are hatching ducklings in an incubator, it could be you. When a duck imprints on you, she will want to follow you around and be with you all the time. It is something you might want to give some thought to. While it sounds fun to have a duck imprint on you, you should also think about the long-term happiness of the duck. Danielle finally realized that he imprinted on her and thought that she was his mom. She knew that she couldn't leave his side. They soon became best friends as they hung around together 24/7 and still do. They do everything and go everywhere together. Dusty and Otter. Dusty and Otter are non-biologic duck sisters. They were initially given to the human dad's coworker as a gift, but she could no longer take care of them. So, the family decided to go meet them and see how they felt. The family had never taken care of ducks before. Needless to say, they came home with them that night and their lives had been different ever since spring of 2015. They have always been animal lovers. They'll never expected to be duck caretakers. Things have a way of coming full circle though. The family had both grown up eating the standard American diet, but in 2006, after watching the documentary Winged Migration, they both went vegetarian on the spot. There is a scene where the hunters are shooting migrating birds from the sky. The pointless violence and the disregard for an animal's right to live shocked them. They have been living and loving the vegan lifestyle for the last 11 years. 7 years later, two ducklings waddled into their lives, bringing them back to the place that opened their hearts in the first place. The two ducks lived in a playpen in the kitchen for 4 months, whilst their very kind human was building them a duck mansion in their garden. Before they moved into their own house, they would wake up in the middle of the night and the family had to softly rub their bills until they fell back to sleep. The ducks' mansion has a little pool for them, which they are allowed in from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. The family then closes up all the doors. They make sure that their house has fresh straw, and then they tuck them in for the night. Dusty and Otter both love the freedom they have of messing around in the garden and snacking on treats. Otter is very sweet and affectionate. She knows her name and will run towards you when called. Dusty is full of life and energy and loves dancing in the mud and has a very contagious laugh. She also loves tomatoes. Dusty and Otter are both inseparable from laughing together to causing mischief together. They keep the family on their toes. Jacob. If you live near water of any size and shape, chances are you also live near some ducks. Ducks are found near both fresh water and seawater and on every continent in the world, except for Antarctica. Ducks are very intelligent animals with complex social relationships. This is part of what makes keeping ducks so interesting and so rewarding. Ducks need nearly constant companionship. If you work or go to school outside the house, you should not get a single duck. If the duck is destined to live outside in your yard, you shouldn't get a single duck. Will she get over it? When she is full grown, Annie move her outside and can't be with her all day. Yes, but she will be sad, and no one wants a sad duck. It's best to raise ducklings in at least pairs. Letting them imprint on a sibling will give them a friend to hang out with when you aren't around. It doesn't mean that ducklings won't love you. It just means their entire world doesn't revolve around you, which in the end is better for the duck. One day, Jacob, whilst out driving his car, came across a dead duck. As her body lay there lifeless, her orphaned ducklings scurried around her on the busy road in a desperate bid to wake her up. It appeared that Mother Duck had been run over by a car, so, unable to live with himself, if her tiny babies met the same fate. Jacob pulled a U-turn in order to shoo them off the road and away from danger in harm's way. Then, with the feathers slightly ruffled by all the commotion, the ducklings gathered by a closed garage door where they huddled together tightly for warmth, unable to leave them. Jacob placed them all into a cardboard box and told his very understanding wife that he was bringing 7 little ducklings home. By the time he returned back to the house with his new companions, Jacob's wife and children had already prepared a temporary home for their new lodgers. They placed a towel at the bottom of a plastic bin and helped the baby ducks get settled into their new abode. However, the family soon discovered the ducklings could jump pretty high. So, to keep their new brood from escaping, they placed tennis rackets over the top of the bin. In the meantime, the duck squad got to work building a state-of-the-art, heated duck hotel. Jacob then laid out some food and water for the ducklings, who quickly made themselves at home. Jacob crossed his fingers in the hope that the ducks would survive the night. Thankfully though, the crack and gas were quite comfortable, and when everyone awoke the following day, it was time for the birds to find a more permanent home. Using the internet, the family found a local wildlife rehab organization that agreed to take the ducklings in until they could be released back into the wild. All that they had to do was to hand the little fluff balls over. But of course, not until they were all given names. The family Chris and the 7 ducks, Buddy, Ducky Momo, Screw Minixty Duck, Sarah, Flower, Fluffy, and Grapes. Then, everyone jumped into the family van to take the ducks onto their next adventure. Although the journey only took 20 minutes, it was a tough drive for Jacob, with tears flooding amongst everyone. No one wanted to say goodbye to them, however they agreed. It was better to have been able to help the ducks and then to say goodbye than to have never met them in the first place. After helping to drop off these 7 babies at the wildlife rehab, Jacob's 8-year-old daughter declared her eagerness to work with animals in the future. Jacob says that helping baby ducks is a lot like helping people, as they don't come with manuals. They may run away when you try to help them, but it doesn't hurt to give it a go. As long as you are making some kind of effort, there is always room for improvement. I hope you like this video. Please give us thumbs up and consider to share it with your friends and family. Also subscribe to our channel. Thank you.